We are going to talk about growing successful agencies in 2025 and beyond. And I'm Monica. I'm a product marketer with Planable, and I'll invite my two amazing co-chatters today to introduce themselves and tell you all about what they're doing so interestingly in the agency world.
Amazing. I am so excited to chat. Today, I very much am into this casual setup as well, and it's so lovely to read some of your stories in the chat. And for those of you starting agencies soon or 8 years in, like a real agency veteran, I think that hopefully this will be really insightful. My name is Sophie. I'm the founder and director of a business called Pretty Little Marketer, which is a community and resource for people in and on social media. I started running my business as the director 1.5 years ago, but prior to that, freelanced with some of the UK's biggest brands, including Kraft Heinz, Frasers Group, a few other ones, really cool ones, mostly as a kind of solo freelancer, but I worked in a lot of agencies as well as a freelancer. And when you're in it, you can spot the pitfalls. So I'm really interested to learn more about today's insights and kind of share some of that experience from, I guess, a bit more of an external perspective too. And I'll hand over to Corrie.
Thanks. Yeah, also very excited to chat. A lot of this today is very up my street from kind of years working in different agencies. So I'm head of social at Strategic. We are a digital transformation agency. There's 65 of us now in the team. But I've also worked in smaller agencies and actually ran my own social media agency for 6 years. So have lots of kind of experience through from freelancing and being a team of one through to having a team of 6 that I was founder of through to now working in a 65-person agency. So yeah, excited to share a kind of full spectrum of ideas today.
It's great, thank you. So feel free to put any questions in the chat. I'll make sure to keep an eye on it and to answer all of them. So we decided to base the webinar today, the chat today, on a report that we recently launched at Planable on agency profit margins. So we surveyed 145 agency leaders from across the world, and we have some very interesting data to allow you to benchmark your business results against agencies that are similar to yours. So as we do have people joining today from all sorts of agencies, so were the ones that we surveyed. As you can see, we have people who are just starting out, who have one or even none employees yet, one client, but we also have quite diverse teams and big teams who have over 50 employees and over 20 clients. So I trust that the findings that we have are relevant for a lot of agencies, for everyone out there. So where are you standing in terms of profitability margins against other agencies that are similar to yours? So what we found was 60% of the agencies that we surveyed have a profit margin above 20%. What the correlations that we saw in the report show that obviously people who are just starting out have negative margins. They're just starting out, getting new clients, investing in what they're building. So that's where we see 13% of the respondents that have negative margins. They're running at a loss right now, but fingers crossed, their business is going to grow. But we also noticed 37% of the surveyed agencies have profit margins above 40%. So we named those high profit agencies, and we tried to look at what strategies and tactics they use that helps them have a successful business. So we are going to look more on what these high profit agencies do and what we can learn from them. Now, because I know, of course, it's always a matter of where you are in the world, what the business climate is, where you're running. I'm not going to stick around to this slide too much because it's quite heavy, but we'll be sending out a report later so you can just see where your agency profit margins stand, when you compare yourself to agencies, both on the size of your agency and in your geography. So what do high profit agencies do differently? And we have some big chapters that we are going to look into. We noticed, quite expected, that scaling drives profits. So when we look at the number of clients that the agencies have, we can see that agencies who are just starting out, they have 50% of them have negative margins. They have just one client, so that's quite expected. That shouldn't be worrying. You're just starting your business, and as you grow, this is what the data shows, that you can trust that as you grow your business, your profit margins are going to grow as well. So it's not just about growing the revenue, but also learning how to do business more efficiently, so that you can hit higher profit margins. So the best news of this slide is that agencies with more than 20 clients have obviously the bigger slice of the green part, which is profit margins between 80 and 100%, which is amazing, I think. And then, of course, as you grow your business, it's expected that you'll also grow your team in order to be able to serve those high numbers of clients. And this is, again, where we see that agencies with big teams, with teams of more than 50 people, again, reach the higher profits, with 38% of them being in the 80 to 100% profit margins. So I'll pause here because I don't want to geek out too much into these slides. It's not a presentation. We're just going to go back and forth. And I've got a question now. I'm going to stop and ask Corrie to share from her experience what are the challenges and the opportunities when you're growing the team into increasing the business and the profit margins.
Yeah, I mean, I think of this from my own experience, I can kind of see where the smaller agencies I've been part of would be on this map, and now strategic, the larger agency that I'm at would be at. I think the main opportunity of having more people in the team is you've got a larger diversity and variety of perspectives. You've got more expertise in hand. Every person that joins the agency is going to have a number of different brands that they've worked with previously. They'll have different social strategies they've worked on. They'll be able to bring that wealth of experience to your agency. They'll also have connections and previous brands they've worked with that might want to jump ship to a different agency. So the benefit of that on scalability and profit is that obviously you can, one, charge more because you've got more expertise in the team, but two, you've probably got more experienced people that can get the work done more efficiently because of their years of experience. So you can charge for that expertise, but it's not necessarily going to take days and days of time. On the flip side, there's obviously a lot of challenges as well when you add more people to the team. I'd say the main challenge for me would be, in terms of profit, keeping everyone on the same page with where a project is going. When you've got a larger team, you don't want to pad out client meetings with every single person on that project being on the meeting, because you just end up overburning the project. You're using thousands of hours of staff time potentially on a 1 hour meeting where not everyone even spoke. So then you've got into the realm of, you need a really, really brilliant client manager, or one person that's going to funnel through the action points and all the notes from that meeting to make sure that even if people weren't present in the meeting, they're all on the same page. So I know there's a bit of chat about AI tools and things later, but that's where things like Otter and MeetGeek and all these tools that take notes for meetings can be really helpful, so that you don't need to invite anyone and everyone. You can have just really efficient action points off the back of it.
I love that, and I think it's great to be able. We use Avoma, for example, just to record all the conversation that our sales reps have, and so you can just get AI notes sent in, just get the summary, and not spend too much time like a whole team of people talking to the client.
Yeah, exactly. It's the classic, when a meeting could have been an email. I'm all for a quick summary of a meeting that I didn't necessarily need to sit in for a couple of hours. So yeah, those tools are great.
Yeah, and when you're looking just, you want to hear people talk, and that's important for you to get the wordings that you can just put on 2x and hear what you're looking for, but not spend all the time. That's amazing. Thank you. Sophie, I know you've been more of a team of one, as you said, but I'm sure that some of the interesting things you get to see when you're looking from inside in. I know you've worked with big companies, so what tips and tricks do you have to share around this?
Yes, I love what you said, Corey. One about meetings that could have been emails. I have been lucky enough when I started my career as a freelancer to have been picked up and worked with various agencies, both big and small. One of my first kind of freelance employers was an employer branding agency, which was really interesting, like incredible clients, and they were growing quicker than they could keep up. There were new employees all the time. As Corrie said, new employees, new services, new expertise. I remember our organic social team quickly added like a paid aspect and then a branding aspect, then like a web design aspect. And I think, like Corrie said, that's the incredible opportunity there. But I think what that also risks is maintaining that consistent quality across the larger workforce and ensuring that you've got teams that are working together for a unified goal for that one client. And something that I remember struggling with was one, the meetings that could have been emails. I often reflect on my time in that agency and they were incredible. I loved working there. But I spent more time talking about the work that needed to be done on calls than having the time to do the work. So having efficient means of communication like Otter is an incredible one. I think really could have made that. I could have had a more productive output as an employee and could have also served our clients much, much greater. So they're not getting emails from the design team about something I've fed back that I've also emailed about. So I think there's growth comes with great opportunities, of course, but making sure that you have the kind of communication infrastructure ready so that when you are employing new people and expanding your teams, all of your processes don't go out the window. You're ready and you've got solid foundation to build upon. So no more meetings that could be emails, I think is the key takeaway from that one.
So we do love AI. I mean, there's at least a couple of us that do that. But are there, I don't know, people who are rejecting this? What's your experience in implementing this? Is everyone as happy as we are about AI, or are they just preferring to do things the old way?
We've seen like both sides to this because we've actually used AI a lot the last year on our creatives for client campaigns, because there are always going to be instances where you don't want to do a photo shoot or a video shoot, and actually an AI campaign is a much better way to visualize that. So for example, we have one client we work with, which is a wildlife preservation charity, and the whole campaign was centered around pangolins, which I don't know if anyone knows this animal, but they're like mega cute, but their scales are used a lot wrongly in medicine. So they're killed for those purposes and sold in markets predominantly in kind of Vietnam and China. So there's so few of them in the wild, it would be really impractical to go and film, nor would you want to kind of intrude on their habitat. So we did this the entire video was made from AI through the eyes of the pangolin, and it completely kind of visualized that. That is an example where the client absolutely loved it. It made complete sense for their business to use AI in that creative way. We've seen other clients, both with AI being kind of part of the creative, but also AI being used behind the scenes, perhaps for content writing, where they're a little bit more hesitant. And I think massively it depends on the individual and the industry and the benefit they can see of using it, versus some people being a little bit worried about some of the kind of data and brand implications off the back of that. So I do think marketers are probably leading the way with wanting to use AI, which is great to see. But yeah, not every client or industry is as enthusiastic.
I
And in
think
terms, sorry.
Sorry, go on. I was going to add, I think there can also be a lot of resistance in one, handing over that creative control, of course, but two, budgets, because AI tools, if you want great ones that do great jobs, one, the tools themselves, your subscriptions, they're not always affordable and cheap. But two, if you're working with really advanced, again, like you said, those creative tools, then you're going to either need to hire or outsource people with the expertise needed to use them. Because I can ask ChatGPT a question, but I cannot 3D make pangolins in a way that makes an incredible advert. So something that I remember in previous agencies, like AI is exciting, it can do all this for us, but do we have the budget for it, and how's that going to impact the prices that we are charging our clients, whether that's hourly or kind of on a project basis, which I know you've got some slides on shortly. But I think for me, that's often the kind of question mark that's left out of the AI conversation, because it is exciting and I would love it to do everything for me, but do we have the funds to give AI the best shot with the best people for that job? So I would add that as something to consider, but I need to check out that campaign because it sounds amazing, Corrie.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. And I think that is such a good point, because there's a real myth around people hear AI and they think, oh, great, it'll be done faster. And actually, that campaign is a prime example where our creative team is amazing, but they will tell you it's not quick to make a pangolin's journey from the wild to a wet market look completely realistic without spending time perfecting those visuals. And we put a lot of R&D time, so research and development time, into our creative team knowing how to use AI tools really effectively. So yeah, it's definitely not a cheaper alternative.
I love that. So there indeed are jobs that for AI can be cheap and can be fast, but not for the high quality ones. Thank you, and I'll take the topic that you just thrown at me about pricing. So we looked at how the agencies that we surveyed strategize around pricing. And what we saw that was quite counterintuitive, maybe, or surprising at least, was that the agencies that have the highest profit margins are not the ones that are charging the most. So the question that we asked was, what's the average monthly price that you ask for your social media services? And as you can see, we have agencies that are below the 20% margin who reported to charge above 3K. This was in United States dollars. This is what we asked for in the surveys. Whereas the agencies that see 80 to 100% profit margins are way or almost half of that. So that's surprising. I think being able to charge lower prices can come with being more efficient, as Corrie was mentioning, maybe having people that are more senior and that are able to do the job faster, but in the end they also cost more. So this is quite intriguing, at least for me. And then what we asked was, how do they prefer to charge their clients? So do they charge by project, or do they have monthly retainers? And as you can see, the most common ones are project-based quotes and monthly retainers, but hourly rates, we see them common, but not among the agencies that are high profit, as I was mentioning before, above 40% profit margins. Obviously, this was a multiple selection question, so all agencies probably can adapt from one client to the other. So I'm curious, in your experience, Sophie, how do you prefer to charge for your services? And if you have any, I don't know, lessons learned on doing one or the other.
Yeah, I love this question. It's always so interesting to hear everyone's different experiences. And when I started out as a freelancer, it was 2021. And I remember it was Lounge Underwear, who are a UK-based kind of lingerie and loungewear brand. Their founder DM'd me on LinkedIn. And it was just a short message, took me by surprise. And it was, hey, Sophie, how much would it cost for you to manage our LinkedIn? and immediately. And I think especially for those of you who might be early days, or I know some of you said like you're launching your agency soon, my first thought was not like, am I good enough? How can I kind of prove my value here? It was like, oh, well, I need to pick a price that they're just going to say yes to. So I think there's a lot of challenge around that stigma of maybe feeling like you need to charge less, even though you are providing more than that price tag is worth. I found that really challenging, especially in those early days when I was being approached by bigger brands and bigger clients when they probably had bigger pots. So I could have charged way more. So I missed out there and I learned my lesson. And I think the second lesson that I learned the hard way was the perks of package-based pricing over hourly pricing. When you are, I don't want to say when you're good at your job, but you're almost kind of like penalized for being efficient. You know, I can write you some social media copy in 20 minutes and it'll be great and you'll get clicks and it will be engaging. So why are you paying for those 20 minutes over the kind of long-term brand effect and impact and loyalty that is going to span forward to? I think there are, of course, pros and cons to package-based or hourly based, and that will very much depend like where you are, where you're located geographically in the world, also the deliverables that you are providing in that as well. But my preference would always be package based. I think it's much easier to reflect your worth. And I think it takes the micromanagement out of the client side as well. You know, what, I'm paying you for 4 hours, it's taken 3, where's my hour refund? Or, you know, you've quoted 4 hours, it's taken you 6, we don't have the budget for that. So it's a bit more black and white, and I think it makes those client relations easier. So I think one, that kind of imposter syndrome as a newbie, feeling like you have to undercharge to bag the client when you're worth so much more. And then 2, think on the hourly versus project and kind of where you sit there. Again, arguments for both, but I would always sit on project based from now on forward, I would say.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think hourly pricing makes me think of when I first started freelancing, which would have been 2016 or 2015 actually, and the first person to message me asking would I run their social media, I was just really excited to have got the message, and I still had my full-time job. So I replied to them and was like, yeah, it'd be £10 an hour. And they were like, great, and just immediately, obviously, said yes. And then when I was making plans to quit my full-time job and full-time go into freelancing, I was like, okay, this £10 an hour gig is not gonna work out or pay my rent. But yeah, you learn lessons over the way. I think I love your point, Sophie, on you just want to give a price that the client, you think that they'll say yes to, because actually whether you go for hourly work or project basis, you need to work out what are the actual costs to you as a freelancer or a business for that time. It's not just that if that person's going to pay you £500 a day, you get the £500. It's actually you know, even if you're a freelancer, you've got the salary that you want to take home from that. You've got the cost of maybe having an office. You've got a cost of maybe outsourcing to a freelancer. You've got the cost of all your tools. So working out, this is what it literally, I'm paying out to do this work for you. And then this is the chunk of profit I want on top of that, is just critical. So yeah, don't do what I did basically the first time and just completely pull a number out of the air. You want to get into the spreadsheets and think about it much more before giving a cost. But yeah, we do monthly retainers or project fees at the moment, depending on whether it's a short-term project or a 12-month contract. And yeah, just find that it works a lot better than hourly rates, because also to Sophie's point about being able to write copy in 20 minutes, that at this stage of how long I've been doing social for, it's not that a client is paying for the hour of me sitting to look at their social media strategy. They're paying for the 12, 13 years that I've been doing this for, to be able to write that in an hour, for example. So I think that's the other way you want to think about it when you've got more senior team members in place as well, who can work a little bit quicker.
I think one of the things that keeps people from charging project-based is making sure that you estimate your time well, so that it doesn't backfire when you say, I think I'm going to need 2 people on my team to work for a month on this project, and you charge kind of based on that, and then it goes on and on and on. Do you have any tips on how to mitigate this?
The back and forth of it's going to be this many days or this many days. Yeah, I mean, whenever we're putting an estimate together for a client of a scope of work, it's called an estimate for a reason. Like at that point in the project, you are saying, this is how much time I think it will take based on what you've told me so far about your brand and business. But it might be that 3 months in, there's way more meetings needed or way more communication with that client, or we offer community management for clients, so we'll respond to all their DMs and comments. We can estimate how long that's going to take, but actually if their page grows because we're managing it really well and suddenly they're getting thousands of messages per day that we're trying to reply to, we need to adjust the fees. So yeah, I'd see every estimate you do as a starting point of the conversation. If you're having loads of back and forth at that stage of the client not being happy to pay what you said you want to charge, sometimes it can genuinely be an issue with budgets. Sometimes it can be a massive red flag, and you kind of know at that stage that if the client doesn't want to pay what you're worth and what you need as an agency to make profit on it, then it's not particularly fair. So yeah, that's a couple of points I'd add to it. And I love the point in the chat from Ellie saying that freelancers don't have paid holidays, sick days, pension contributions, etc., because that is such a good point as well that you need to consider when you're costing up. And again, if a client, when you've put an estimate to them, is trying to squeeze you on price, that is taking away from stuff like your pension contributions and paying for sick days. So yeah, another really important thing to consider.
We have 2 questions in the chat, and I want to pause to take them on. So Arnis is asking, how is everyone's profits fees shifted with the AI? So touching on the point you mentioned earlier. He says, in our case, we used to make a lot of high-value photo shoots, but now with Midjourney, we can make photorealistic stuff. Problem is, clients don't want to pay for the same or even better result because we generated it. What's your view experience with this? Should the AI stuff be cheaper?
That's such a challenging one. I do not have any experience in that, but I do have thoughts. When I did freelance, I found it really tricky to price based on kind of like output and impact. So sure, you can do a photography setup in your spare room. You can do it in a professional studio, or you can use something like Midjourney, and they could look exactly the same, but obviously your input behind the scenes is going to be one completely different, and the kind of funds needed for each of those 3 different techniques and approaches will also be different there. So I guess the first thing I would do is factor in that, what the overhead costs needed, kind of what's being sucked out of your profits to conduct, again, let's go back to those 3 examples, those 3 different types of shoots or approaches. But 2, is there any possibility of like shifting that conversation out of like deliverables and here's what we're going to do physically, we're going to use Midjourney to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and actually shift it onto the kind of outbound impact and those deliverables of, well, no matter how we get to this conclusion, you're getting 3 high quality product shots that are going to do this, this, and this. So I wonder if maybe, and again, I don't have experience here, I'm just kind of brainstorming and troubleshooting, but maybe it's a case of shifting that conversation from the methods to the output. Because again, no matter what the method, you're still getting the same result, hopefully. So some food for thought, but yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? AI has so many pros, but it also comes with its cons.
Arnis has also given us the hack. He said that for the last project, we didn't say it was Midjourney, and the client thought it was real photo. So that's proof of your skill using the tool in the end, right? I think this is such a new topic that is going to take people getting accustomed to, but it's probably conversations that are going to be in the past in 1 or 2 years, and everyone will be just, yeah, it's AI. Okay, so going to, I see also we have a question in the Q&A. So it says, Arushi says, I usually work with startups and small businesses. How do I tell a 2-year-old client to revise the payment without letting them go? Sometimes I felt it is a very competitive space. So if I demand more, they'll work with someone else.
I have been in that position. And so what I'd say to this is, so I've had this a couple of times where you've got more experience, what you're offering is a better service, so you want to raise prices, and you're very grateful for long-standing clients, but you're not making as much profit on that account perhaps as you used to. When I felt most anxious about this was when we first got over the threshold for needing to register for VAT, and I knew that some of my clients weren't VAT registered. So I was feeling really bad and anxious about the fact that by me putting VAT on our invoices, it was just going to cost more money for them. And so I kind of built this up in my head, and those emails that you just dread sending. Sent emails to the client, just outlining what was going to be happening, and we didn't have anyone leave. Actually, we got a lot of emails back saying, "Oh, congrats! Like that's amazing for your business." So I would, depending on how you communicate with that client normally, I'd either pick up the phone or lay things out in an email if you know that they like to read things and digest it a bit, and just outline everything that you've kind of changed as an organization, how your skills have developed, the greater impact you're bringing them, all of that. Outline what the new pricing will be. I'd give this from maybe a date that's slightly in the future, so you're not saying we're going to charge you more from tomorrow. And just if they want to have a chat about it, then do. But I'd also add to this that think about like phone contracts. How often I get a text from EE just saying your bill is going to go up by £3 from next month, and unless you leave your contract at a cost, there's nothing you can do about that. So yeah, I think sometimes we can kind of, it feels bigger in our heads, and when you talk to the client about it, they actually won't be as concerned about it as you are, because if their business is growing, they'll be making more profit than when they first signed you a couple of years ago. So yeah, good luck with those conversations. I hope they go really well.
I think you can also take into account that there's also always, and the client is quite aware of it, there's a price of changing the tool that you're using. That's something we experience with, or changing the team that you already trust for 2 years. Sure, you might try to bargain for a couple of bucks, but the trust that you've built during that time is going to be a bit difficult for the client to leave as well. We have some more questions in the chat, but I love that they're very similar to the theme we have. So I'll just share a bit more on our survey. They're around how do you expand your business, right? How do you get to give out more services or to get more clients. So what we asked next our survey respondents was what types of services do they offer on top of the social media services? Because one obvious tactic is offering the clients that you're already working with for some parts, for some services, to just bring them more value so you can charge them more. And we saw that on top of social media services, agencies usually offer performance marketing, which is paid social, search, display ads, and content marketing, which is, again, very linked to what you're already doing, creating nice content, just putting it in different contexts. PR and events and web development come next, with web design and more technical stuff going down. And when it comes to getting new clients, client referrals and word of mouth is obviously the most popular choice. It's the best when you have happy clients to encourage them to tell people about that. Social media, since you already offer these services to other people, you can use them to grow your business as well. And then content marketing, partnerships. So this is what we found. Referrals, as you can see, are the top answer. But what we found for high profit agencies is that they use at least a couple of these tactics, usually 3 or 4 of them. So it's not just putting all your eggs in one basket and counting on client referrals, but doing a lot of stuff to promote your business. So I'm going to stop here and let's take some questions from the chat. And just Corrie, let us know how you're feeling around this.
Referrals into our business are a big way that we get new client projects, for sure. It sounds like a really obvious one, but we always at the agency say that the trick to get new clients is just do great work for the current clients that you're working with and make it really easy for them to know how to talk about you and refer you to other people. Some of the other ways that we're getting referrals through at the moment, we've just put out last month a big report piece, of big, kind of similar to the format here today, but a big piece of research and data into 2025 social media trends, which you'll have seen kind of every agency comes out with around that kind of year. But we've been really happy with the results that have come off the back of that. We've had about 80 people download since launching the last couple of months, and some really big, well-known brands that I was quite surprised by had seen it. And that was all through LinkedIn promotion, 99% of those downloads. We sent out some emails as well, but I think with the report being about social media, promoting it on organic social was what worked the best. And myself and the social media team have good LinkedIn networks that we could kind of promote that to. So yeah, that's worked really nicely for us recently. And then the third one I'd say is speaking at events. When I first started my agency, that was the main way that we would get new business through alongside referrals. I did a lot of free lunch and learn style talks at different co-working spaces around London, where I'd give an hour of time to do the talk, and then people would come up afterwards and ask, how would you apply this to my business? And it was a really nice, natural way to start a sales conversation, because they already felt like they'd had an hour of value from you, and then they wanted to continue speaking about that. So yeah, I think those are the top 3 ways really that we get clients and new business through.
Awesome. Sophie, I'm sure word of mouth at least works great for you, but what along your journey, what have been the most successful tactics?
I feel like I'm like so biased in this answer, and personal branding. And I know that every time you log on to LinkedIn, it's something everyone's talking about and it seems to be everywhere. And I often find the conversation around it to feel quite buzzwordy and jargony, especially like this year and beyond. But exactly like Corrie said, it's kind of giving that free value, whatever that looks like, in exchange for trust, and then you can begin that funnel process. And I almost see it as like a bite of cake. If someone gives you a slice of cake, you're going to have a bite, it's delicious, but no one just has one bite of cake. We want the whole slice. So what can you give that can entice someone in to want the rest of the nice, juicy chocolate cake, or whatever it is that you're serving? And LinkedIn has been a huge one for me. For me, it's very much been this sentiment of, it's not who I know, but who knows me. And some of my biggest clients, I worked with some really cool brands a year or 2 ago, and I remember it was one of their social media marketers followed me on LinkedIn, enjoyed my content. I share tips, I talk about industry trends, I share my own journey and thoughts through my content. They were in a meeting, the head of social was off on maternity leave. They were like, right, we need a freelancer as a replacement. And that one person who I had no connection to, no personal relation, I didn't know them, like, oh, I follow someone called Sophie on LinkedIn. Shall I get in touch and see what she does? So not underestimating, exactly like those speaking gigs that Corrie shared there, not underestimating that thought of like free value. And I think just being visible is such an underrated tactic there too. So I know that personal branding can feel like a big and tricky one, but you know, Corrie, heading to co-working spaces and doing lunch and learns, or do you have friends in other companies and you can host a lunchtime session for them, or is it just being brave enough to post on LinkedIn and see what those results are, or just start sharing conversations in other people's comment sections? I find to be a really nice kind of entry-level way to become a familiar face on a platform like LinkedIn. So I know personal branding gets a bit of an eye roll, but wouldn't be on today's wonderful panel without it. So one to think about for sure.
It takes a lot of effort, but it's totally worth it when you do it right, I'm sure. Martin asked, what would you advise to give a percentage of the revenue in exchange for a referral? Do you have anything on this?
I've never actually done that in my experience. We've just had clients that are happy to refer us without a fee, which is obviously great. I do know an agency who has a really strong paid referral program, and they've well, they were telling me the other day they've helped one of their clients pay off his mortgage because he just was referring so many clients through to them that he was getting a real kind of kickback from it. I think there's pros and cons to it. If you go too much down that route, I don't know, I wouldn't want it to feel inauthentic with referrals, that the client is only referring you to someone because they know they're going to get a payment. When we get referrals at the moment, it's when the client feels like there's a really strong fit between us and the person they're referring us to. And I think the person that they're referring us to picks up on that as well, that they know that the client's just really passionate about working with us. So yeah, no experience of doing that directly, but I do know other people that it's worked well for.
Great. I noticed Nicole also had a question around this topic. She said, I work for an out-of-home advertising company. How would you recommend building authentic partnerships with agencies?
Another good question. So, as in kind of referral partnerships, I'm guessing going back and forth between the out-of-home agency and other kind of agencies that offer services that you don't. Again, in my experience, I've had people approach me wanting a kind of pay for introduction, and then people just approach me and say, I'm another agency founder, I love what you do, can we go for a coffee? My preference is probably that approach, to build the relationship first. I think if someone lands in my inbox and is immediately saying, okay, I'll bring you clients, you bring me clients, and we'll just do it on a fee basis, it's not, I don't know, again, it just feels quite transactional, and I want to know that the person that I'm referring people to is actually really, really good at what they do. So to build that relationship up, I'd say reach out to the founder, or maybe that agency has a head of partnerships, go for a coffee with them, perhaps chat them through what you do, follow each other on social media, and then over time build that trust that you do an amazing job and they should want to refer your clients to them, because no agency wants to refer clients to someone that they haven't seen evidence of good work, because you're just going to end up really annoying the clients that you send in that direction. So yeah, I'd say it takes time, and I'd approach it from that authentic way.
I also noticed an interesting question from Ashley. He says, I'm a freelance ad strategist that wants to partner more with agencies. How do you charge an agency as a freelancer to make it beneficial for both the agency and yourself? Indeed, we have this in the report as well. Of course, agencies have their employees, but they sometimes and quite often use freelancers to cover for part of the services they offer. So can you help Ashley with some recommendations here?
Yeah, really good question. I started as a freelancer in 2021, and I did organic social media and social media management for their clients. And two kind of main ways I worked with agencies would, one, it'd be on like a day rate. A lot of it, because you are being outsourced to, a lot of it depends on, like, it lies on them, doesn't it? Their processes, how do they work with their clients? And then also, what do they charge their clients? I found more times than none, unless I brought the client to that agency, I didn't have much insight as to how much they were charging, as to know what extra they had to provide to me. So two kind of common ways. Number one was a day rate. I found that really easy to benchmark for as well. I have a lot of friends who freelance on day rate, so it was a case of, how much do you charge for X for 8 hours of work and going from there. The challenge there is like a day rate works differently for everyone. What if I'm only working half a day? What if you need me for 2 hours a day? Or I would kind of charge like that monthly retainer fee of if you need me, and then often send the deliverables. If you want me for one client to do 1, 2, 3, 4, this is how much I will charge. And if it's a no, it's just a case of negotiating to something that you're comfortable with. If you have more confidence than it could be a kind of broader conversation on like, okay, well, what do you charge that client? I just never had the confidence to ask that big question. I was very early on in my career as well. I think if I was to do the same now, that might be one of my leading questions, or, what is your budget for outsourcing for this role? And making it an open conversation. So day rates are quite a safe and easy one. Or project-based, going with your usual rates, or again, if you're big and brave, which I am not, going with the hard questions. The worst they can do is not answer, and then I think you can kind of judge from there.
Kind of related to this, we also have a question from Millie, who says she's looking to go from AI consultant to building her own agency, and if you have any advice on building a remote team.
Firstly, congrats. That's an amazing step to be taking. I would say kind of sit down and look at what, even though it's just kind of you and it's going to be freelancers you're adding into the team, what's the culture of your business going to be that you want to create when it's more than just you, and what is really, really important to you in those roles, and then make that list of that kind of non-negotiable, because it's really easy once you interview someone and chat to a freelancer and you get on really well with them to think, oh yeah, this is a really good fit, and actually they wouldn't, if you'd made that non-negotiable list first, they don't actually hit a lot of the things on that list for kind of skill sets and things like that. So yeah, I'd make that list. When you're chatting to those freelancers, I'd also ask how much other work they have on and how much notice they're going to need for stuff, because the difficulty that I found when I went from freelancing to outsourcing some work to other freelancers to then building an agency was that if you've got in-house employees, obviously there's a lot of stress with payroll and HR and everything that comes with that. But the benefit is that that they're there every day unless they're on annual leave. With a freelancer, obviously they're going to want to be more flexible. They've got other clients. So yeah, you just need to know kind of their commitments and how much they can dedicate to you and the brand that you're building. Otherwise you get into some kind of sticky situations. And also I'd decide, are you going to introduce the clients to them, or are you going to keep them kind of hidden and you'll still be the point of contact with clients? Because that probably matters to the freelancer as well, and they might have some preferences about what that looks like.
I agree. I have only worked with agencies remote, actually. I think when I reflect on my experience when I freelanced, and something I found really changed my experience based on agency was like the processes they already had in place. So I remember with one of the first agencies that hired me as a freelancer, I was working with them and their clients, and one person was using one scheduling tool. I was, of course, using Planable. I would be editing their videos on Veed. I love Veed. It's an editing tool. And then someone else would be sending them to me on a CapCut that I couldn't edit. So, and it sounds so like simple and obvious, but like from start to finish, what tools are you using? What's the process? What is the scheduling process? Taking a look back at every single touch point they're going to have with you and making sure that you've got it down. There's a really great tool, and I know one of our kind of closing questions is like tools and AI ones that we recommend, so I'm going to jump the gun a little bit, but there's a really brilliant tool called Tango. If anyone's used it, let me know in the chat. But what you can do is you can screen record a process on your computer. So it might be, you know, download, open Canva, select Planable, go to media library, upload, type caption, schedule here, add feedback, whatever that is. And then Tango will take that replay, get screenshots and add a write-up and turn your screen recording into a workflow. And then you can kind of then build a bit of like a Bible or guidebook on like, this is how we do things. But you don't have to type it up or do all the screenshots yourself. So the tool is called Tango, Tango. It's amazing. But yeah, echo everything Corrie said, and then adding, make sure that you've got your processes ready. But good luck. That sounds very exciting.
So I'm going to take the cue and just quickly share my last two slides that Sophie was pointing to. So indeed, when we were looking at what high profit agencies do, of course, they learn how to do ops more efficiently. When it comes to process efficiency, we see project management and communication tool, but also a very high focus on continuously improving the team processes, evaluating where you have bottlenecks, where you're wasting time, and how can you improve that. Then AI, of course, we already touched on that a lot. There's AI in many other tools that are not AI to say. So we have ChatGPT, which is obviously what has brought us all closer to AI and has democratized AI basically for everyone. But we also have a lot of other tools like Canva, like Planable, who already also has AI embedded, like Trello, Slack, Notion. So these are some pointers that we learned from the agencies we surveyed. In the report, we have a more extensive list of tools, and I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to ask Corrie also to share a bit of what are the most valuable tools or categories of tools that agencies should look into.
So I don't think we've actually mentioned time tracking yet on this call, which is a bit of a dirty word in some agencies, but we use a tool called Scoro, which I, as head of department, don't actually think I could live without. So Scoro, everyone tracks their time through Scoro. So even though we don't charge by the hour, we know how many hours, how many days have across the team have we spent on that client that month. And that would include, you know, if you had a 10-minute phone call with the client randomly, you'd add that in. If you worked for 4 hours on their social content, you'd add that in. And then we know how much profit we've got at the end of the month from each project. And equally, you know, if we're really over delivering, I'll type it in the chat because yeah, it's a bit of a random name, so it's Scoro. And there'll be a whole host of other time tracking tools as well, and I'm sure some kind of free/cheap ones that you can start with if you're kind of a smaller agency. But yeah, that just gives us so much insight. So some kind of time tracking tool, I would say, is an absolute must for agencies if you're really digging into profit. And then as a social media team, we use Planable as well. We've used Planable for years and years, and that saves a lot of time and adds efficiencies because you're not working in really clunky spreadsheets, and our clients really love it as well because it's much easier for them to visualize what the content's going to look like. We use a couple of the design tools that we've already mentioned, so Canva, we use Figma as well, and then we use some of the video tools that So's already mentioned, but also Capwing is another one that we use, which I'll pop the name in the chat so that people can find it.
We have some more questions that are more specific, but I'd like to go into them. So Ibrahim asks, what is the best approach to develop a strategy? If there are any key or main points that he should cover when developing a strategy, as different fields require different approaches and requirements.
What sort of strategy would be my question?
Yeah, is this a social media strategy or a kind of agency business strategy, or a secret third option?
So we need a clearer question. I'll guess it's more of a strategy for the agency when you're just starting out. Are there a table of contents of what you should have in the strategy? Yeah, for the agency, that's what he's saying there.
I never actually sat down and mapped out what I wanted the agency to look at. The CEO at Strategic, Andy, is really smart on all this, and I'm sure would have a really great answer for this. But I would say some key things you want to decide to inform the strategy would be, do you want to be an agency that services a lot of clients, but perhaps quite cheaply? So I know some social agencies that they'll charge £1,000 a month for social management, flat fee, but they have 100 different clients they work with. We, as an agency, charge a lot more than that, but we have 40 clients that we work with, and we wouldn't really want to go above that. And, you know, for a team of 65, there's more of us in the team than there are clients that we're servicing, but we work with them across a ton of different service lines and have, you know, much bigger kind of yearly retainers that come from that. So yeah, I'd decide what you want your agency to look like in terms of pricing. And then I think about staff-wise, services-wise, do you want this to be just you? Do you want to kind of grow and scale? What's the long-term plan? So after 6 years of running my agency, I sold it. If I'd known from the start I was going to sell it, I'd have done things very differently the 6 years prior. So knowing, is this going to be a bit of a lifestyle business? Is it something that you're going to want to exit and have another agency acquire one day? So yeah, those are a couple of the key points that I'd write down to help you form what the strategy is going to look like.
We also had a question from Peter on handling clients who insist on creating their own creatives, but you feel their style is quite outdated, as these clients tend to run small-scale meta ads, for example, for themselves, and they have trust issue. They give you limited space and time for the project to develop. Can you share some? We're running out of time, so just quick tips here for Peter, if you have any.
I have very much been there. When I started as a freelance social media manager, I kind of did content end to end. So I will shoot the reels, or I will give you the creative direction, and it's kind of like the full management rather than just like the admin jobs, I suppose. And I found it really hard to work with the clients who would send me kind of iPhone shot reels that were blurry with dark lighting, who also expected incredible results that I think just low quality content like that really can't produce. So for me, it was making it really clear from the start that if you work with me, like, this is end to end, and there is no other option. There's no compromise unless you have incredible content that's going to blow my socks away that I don't think I can do better than. So I think making that clear from the beginning was really important to me. Or perhaps there might be room, you know, later in that relationship, if you're already working together, you know, you've got a trust now, you know, we're doing well with the copy. How about for, I don't know, February's posts, we do a mix and see, I don't know, gamify it, your content versus mine. And when mine outperforms, and, you know, you can hand it over to me. Third addition there, I know we wanted quick and snappy, but third addition there, kind of understanding what their hesitations are. You know, have they been born in the past by a freelancer or an agency? And I think until you understand what they're kind of, what's holding them back, you can't address it effectively. So making it clear from the start. 2, like, how can you compromise and meet in the middle? Or 3, just having a really honest conversation, you know, like, why don't you want to hand this over? And how can I help you make a different decision? It all comes back to communication. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Thanks. This is it for our webinar. Martin was mentioning that was the first time he didn't feel like he was listening to a sales pitch. So I'm going to ask you to allow me just 1 second to tell you about Planable. If you haven't tried it already, do try it. It's a place where you can create awesome social media content together with your clients. You can get easy collaboration on it with clear text suggestions, annotations, everything that you need, scheduled to all the important social networks, and get really quick approvals from your clients, so you don't waste any precious time and have a great business as an agency owner and grow your profit margins. Thank you so much, Sophie and Corrie, for all the interesting information you've shared today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you, everyone.
See you later, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.